Thank you very much for staying tuned to Development Focus with Jide on ITV. We are in here after that viewpoint. We are going to be having discussions around issues affecting persons with disability. Joining us is a disability rights activist, a journalist, a communication expert, the managing director of the Qualitative magazine, Agbo Christian. You're welcome, sir.
Good morning, our viewers. Good morning, Jide. I'm so happy to be here. And it's the first time being in your show, and I'm so happy. You're talking about disability issues. It's always my passion.
Yeah, I noticed that Dominic is joining me on this interview segment. Dominic.
Yeah, it was nice to have him on stage this morning. When he called, he was already on his way. We're so glad knowing the challenge of persons living with disability go through, but for him to be here to air his voice and maybe to speak for others, especially at a time we are now where the country is heading towards the 2023 elections. So much has been said about the chances or what the government has for persons living with disability. So this morning we shall be looking at a whole lot of issues and the way forward to ensure that they are not excluded in some of in governance, especially when it comes to administration in Nigeria.
Okay, Christian, it's 62 years of independence for Nigeria. How has the community of persons with disability, how have you fared? And by the way, what is DRAC?
The major message is just what is here.
Okay,
yes,
rights.
Disability right is human right.
Yeah, of course it is human right. And that's why I said you are a disability rights activist.
I purposely won the cap so that,
to drive home the point.
Yes, to drive home the point. That's just it. Yes.
So how have you fared in terms of inclusion, of rights of inclusion, social inclusion, political inclusion of persons with disabilities since 1960?
It hasn't been easy for persons with disabilities. It has been a very long time for persons with disabilities. We fought for our Disability Act for 19 years. So it has been a whole lot of struggle for us, advocating for our right, for us to, because people were raising a whole lot of questions when we are actually pushing for our right. They were saying, what is the need for persons with disabilities to have a special right? Because they don't really understand what it takes for one to live with a disability, what all the challenges that you're facing. So you actually need to have a right, for you to be able to measure up with others, and that is why that right was so important, and we fought for it for 19 years. Several presidents came, we are not able to actually get it, get to the level of the presidential assent, and it will be denied.
On two occasions.
On two occasions it happened, until President Muhammad Buhari came in, and with the help of the National Assembly, the likes of Saraki as the Senate President at that time, and when the bill finally got to the Mr. President, he signed it into law, and that's where we are here now. We have a law, and what we are doing now is try to push for the implementation of that particular law to ensure that persons with disabilities, have equal opportunities like every other person.
Yeah, about equal opportunities. You talked about spending almost 19 years to get that bill finally passed. But some Nigerians who may not really understand, they believe that the right to live is everybody's right. But what are these rights you feel you're supposed to be so important that government need to pay attention to, that made you have to go through these numbers of years to ensure that it becomes law for those persons living with disability?
Okay, when you look at the disability, before I go on, let me actually correct. Like the term person living with disability is not the right term that you use for persons with disabilities. You can actually use persons with disabilities, because when you say living with disabilities, it seems as if disability is a disease. okay, which is not. You know, disability is only a condition. And when you create access, I'm just coming to your question. If you look at that particular act, it has a whole lot of provisions that has to do with access, has to do with education, it has to do with political participation. So because we know that person with disabilities does not really have that kind of, they can't really compete with others if you leave it that way. So that's why the law is very important for persons with disabilities. So that, but because, let me give you an example. If I come to a particular building and that building is not wheelchair friendly, how will I be able to interact with people in that building, or even get to do what I need to do in that particular place? So these are some of the things. So the barriers that the society have created, environmental barrier, attitudinal barrier, and several other barriers, has actually limited the opportunities of persons with disabilities. So you need to have a law that will now give the room for those barriers to be removed, so that persons with disabilities can be able to have equal opportunity with others. So that's the essence of that.
If you go, I mean, you talk about environmental barriers. You are on a wheelchair. Do you have a bank? Do you go to bank?
Yes.
How do you access the electronic door of the bank when you go there?
It's not just possible. You know, these are some of the issues this particular law is going to be addressing. You know, because you know, it has 5 years grace. You know, 5 years transitory period for access to be created. So, and that 5 years, 3 years is already over. We have just 2 years to the end of that particular 5 years. And when the 5 years elapses, what we'll now begin to do, if I cannot access a particular building, I have the right to take up litigations to ensure that that particular building is made accessible for me, especially a public building. You know, so any public building, whether you're doing business, it's government establishment, it has to be made accessible for persons with disabilities. So we've not been able to be assessing, like what happened to me when I go to the bank, is that sometimes I call them out to come and attend to me. You know, so that privacy, you know, the confidentiality, you don't really have it any longer. So you see people doing your transactions for you, doing everything for you. So this is what we're actually facing when we want to access.
I mean,
so there's no financial inclusion for persons.
Since you took us the route of the legality of having a law that in 62 years, one of the achievements of persons with disabilities is this National Disability Act.
Yeah.
Now, I'm aware that we have National Commission for Persons with Disability.
Yeah.
In 2 years of its existence, how has it fared?
The commission is one of is a product of that particular act, and we will just say that over time, going by these 2 years of the life of the commission has, let me just say that what they are doing right now is just to try to build the foundation.
Okay.
So they are just building the foundation. So I think by the time they finish building that foundation, people will begin to see the effect of what they are doing. So what I understand they are doing right now is just trying to get other MDAs to understand their roles and responsibilities in that act. And they have been doing that one so well, because they have been paying a costly visit to different organizations, explaining the act to them, explaining what is expected of them to do in that act. So this is the much the commission is actually doing right now. But the commission has also come up with developing a disability study that they want to mainstream into the curriculum of higher institutions, so that people will begin to study disability studies within the school. Because by the time people understand disability inclusion, you begin to find students that will be in, most of the officials will have a first-hand idea about what disability is all about. Because one of the challenges we are facing is that people don't really understand disability. So by the time you are coming to face a particular establishment, they look at you, and they may not really understand what you're trying to talk about. So, and that has always been the greatest challenge that person with disabilities are facing. So we believe that by the time people begin to, at the school level, begin to understand issues around disability, it will actually help persons with disabilities to be able to enjoy some of the things that they need to enjoy. Because what you should understand is that is lack of understanding of disability that has actually fueled this issue of people having attitudinal, discriminating persons with disabilities because they don't really understand you very well. Like for example, somebody who may look at me now that the first thing that will come to that person's mind is those things that will not be able to do. But those things that can do, the person don't really see them. So these are some of the, if the person who studied disability at that level, it will actually understand that for the fact I have a disability, I have also come up with some coping strategies to cope with my situation. And there's so many things that I can also do, going by the fact that with disability, disability helps you to develop a whole lot of strategies to keep on living your life.
All right, you talked about access to financial institutions and other public places. I want to dive into our major area of discussion this morning, governance. Now, this commission that has been set up for persons with disability, how much of your members are involved in it? Are we having governments just selecting people to run it, or persons with disability will take charge of that ministry? Just like we have for instance, the Albino Foundation. I know for quite a number of time, each time when we have him here on our program, he emphasized the need for persons with disability to be in position of power, so that you feel, because he who wears the shoes know where it hurts the more. So what's the position of things as regards that commission?
First of all, the commission has a board, and that board, they appointed persons with disabilities to represent each geopolitical zone, which we actually have 6 of them. And they also have the executive secretary, and the executive secretary is also a person with disability. So, but when you look at the formation of the staff of that particular office, for now I don't have information of the number of persons with disabilities that works in that office, but I know that a whole lot of them are there. So many of them who are there. But when we even look at governance, we are not just looking at the level of commission, because that is exactly what most of us are frowning at. When we see that we are giving the commission, that's the only place that person with disability should be. That is not what we should be looking for. What person with disabilities are looking for is a situation that we find ourselves in different other places. In the National Assembly, we should have a representative. In the Senate, all these places, even in government, it should not be all about appointing a special advisor on disability, and the person will now be a person with disability. They have so many professionals with disability who can also be commissioners, then even give them opportunity to contest for elective positions. And okay, these are some of the areas we are looking at. So it's not enough to talk about just the commission.
Yeah, we'll come back, Dominic, to talk more about the commission. But in terms of political inclusion, 2023 election is around the corner, and INEC has a framework for participation for persons with disability. The Electoral Act also has a couple of amendments in terms of continuous voter registration and disaggregated data, as well as Section 54, which you mentioned, which says INEC shall provide assistive devices. How would you rate INEC in terms of preparation for, persons with disability rights enforcement, political rights enforcement, and then the political parties themselves?
INEC on their own part has been engaging organizations of persons with disabilities.
As OPDs.
The OPDs, they have been engaging a whole lot of them, like the Inclusive Friends Association, the Albino Foundation that he earlier mentioned, and CCD, that is Citizens for Persons with Disabilities. There's a whole lot of them, and even there's even one of their engagement that I even participated in. And the INEC has read out a whole lot of things that they want to do for persons with disabilities in this coming election. And even the off-cycle elections, we have seen the participation of persons with disabilities. In the Osun election, persons with disabilities were also part of the ad hoc staff. You know, that happened, and they're also promising that the ad hoc staff they are recruiting now, they will still have some persons with disabilities. So, which means that they are already implementing the Section 29 of the Disability Act, which say that 5% employment opportunities should be given to persons with disabilities. So we are so happy about that. Then again, they talk about priority voting. So the priority voting, some people with disabilities are enjoying it. When I say some people with disabilities, you know that some disabilities are not visible.
Exactly.
So, so those ones who are not visible have not been enjoying this priority voting. And we have seen a situation of many of them complaining. You know, I was in a program, I think you also in that program, that Janet, a deaf lady, was actually complaining that she also wanted to enjoy the priority voting, and she was denied. You know, because of the fact that she's
not apparent.
Yes, she cannot see her own disability. She's a deaf person, you know, and she couldn't enjoy that priority voting. And several others, like even the person with albinism, sometimes they come, you know, allowing them to enjoy priority voting.
Because they don't see
so
the
because you don't see, so it's only those people in my own category, or maybe the blind person, that you can actually notice their own disability. Because by the time they see a blind person, they see the white cane, they will know it's a blind person. They will allow the person to enjoy the priority voting. But others, it has been difficult. So how INEC will figure that out, we are still yet to understand how that will happen. Then they talked about the issue of magnified glasses for persons with albinism, and they have also developed a braille ballot guide for the blind to vote. So that's because I know that there's so many blind persons who are not educated. I don't know how that can also, how they can also make use of that. But
devices means that they can also come with somebody that can.
Yes, yes. They gave in the new the latest engagement with them. They actually say that if they have somebody that the person trusts so much, the person can, you know, help the person to cast his ballot. You know, so that's, you know. So looking at INEC has really done a lot. But how it's going to happen on the election day is what we are still looking at. And I know they have this issue of deploying some of those assistive devices because of the fact that we don't actually have the data of persons with disabilities. So you don't know the polling units where you're going to find them. And they don't expect INEC to have braille ballot guard in every polling unit.
About 176,000.
And again, also to have maybe like sign language interpreters in every polling unit.
Because we saw that played out in the FCT election, the last area council election in somewhere in Kuje, where a lady on wheelchair wanted to vote, and when you look at the cubicle where she was supposed to stand, it was a bit high from her. When she got there, she was looking around, nobody to assist her, but one of the INEC returning officials there have to call someone to come and do. So these are some of the challenges we are talking about.
Environmental challenges.
Yes, environmental challenges. Like for example, let me even talk about that issue of the cubicle. I think they are telling us now, they are promising that they are going to introduce a cubicle that will also have the partition where persons with disabilities can use. That's the promise they're giving to us now. So one of the organizations of persons with disabilities even gave them a prototype of a cubicle that will be accessible for persons with disabilities. But my problem is where the placement of some of these things when you go to the polling unit. For example, you come to a particular polling unit where they will even place the ballot box. A wheelchair user will not be able to make use of that access.
But they will have to bring
so some they will even have on the table, you know, stuff like that. Then again, they will even come to a particular school, they are using the classroom, and there's no ramp for a wheelchair user to actually access. So we are suggesting that they should look at it and see how they will make it more accessible for persons with disabilities. Then again, avoiding where they have manholes to the pulling unit. Because when we have manholes, it's a challenge to me, it's a challenge to a blind person. So these are some of the things that they can look at.
Few days ago, I think last week, you and I were at a OPD program where the public presentation of GAIN something that it is expected that community of persons with disability will own. What is the prospect of that project, the GAIN project? A number of commitments were raised out and all of that, recommendations and all of that. Do you think that is a way forward for, to mainstream and have a socio-political inclusion of PWDs?
Yeah, as we are coming into the 2023 election, it's very important that persons with disabilities will form a common ground, so that we'll have a common voice to push our issues. And that's what we were able to articulate on that day was actually what most of us have been looking forward to. Now we actually have something that when we want to engage most of these political parties now, we have something that we are going to engage them with. So we are looking at a situation that members of different political parties who are persons with disabilities will take ownership of that particular document and use it to engage their different political parties. And not only that, even disability rights advocates on their own part have to also do more in trying to engage all these presidential candidates, for example, because we don't want to see a situation that by the time we have another government, the issue of implementing Disability Act will become a problem. So, and again, there's a whole lot of other issues that we also want to bring up, and which we're able to articulate them in some of those places that we're able to do. Some of them is long term. That the issue of having persons with disability represented in the National Assembly, Parliament and several other things. And issues that has to do with endowment fund and several others.
I was getting to that part of getting persons with disability in places of positions, especially political positions. And now, what do you think we've not gotten to that level yet?
There's a whole lot of challenges. You talk about poverty. Nigeria will play money politics. So how many persons with disability have the kind of money when people are even selling from at much as 100 million? So you look at it, and even the campaign itself, a lot of persons with disability don't really have that money. So poverty is one thing, and until we begin to address the issue of poverty, then you also look at the issue of there's another thing I'm looking at, that issue of personal factor, because there's a whole lot of persons with disabilities that when they look at themselves, they think that they cannot be able to do it. So
low self-esteem.
So they have defeated themselves already, so they don't even want to present themselves, even when they have those qualities. And me and you know that there's a whole lot of persons with disabilities that have that quality. The likes of Greg Jerry, who is the National Assembly that is better than Greg Jerry? Then the likes of Dr. Arin and Dr. Arin Obok. These are very bright people who are persons with disability. Then you see also Jekepele, then David Aniele. These are people,
even yourself.
So they have, these are, you see a whole lot of persons with disabilities who have a lot to offer the country. But the system has kept us out. Then you also mentioned political parties the other time. I want to also tell the political parties that it's no longer issue of you're doing a favor to persons with disabilities to mainstream them. When you look at even the Disability Act, you look at section 30. Section 30 made it, that it's now a matter of right that person with disability should be part and parcel of the political parties. So the issue of them telling you that it's not in our constitution doesn't arise. They need to find a way to mainstream persons with disabilities because it's their right. And some persons with disabilities recently are even beginning to tell me that they are going to sue some of these political parties for not mainstreaming them. So these are, and another reason why we don't even participate very well in political parties is that you go for political meeting, no sign language interpreter. How do you expect a deaf person to participate in that meeting? They fix their meetings where I cannot access. How do you expect me to be part and parcel of that particular meeting? So there's a whole lot of things that they are doing that has kept persons with disabilities away from participating in politics.
Okay, on a final note, because our time is short, as a journalist, how easy has it been for you plying your trade, going on news runs or gathering materials, or do you just do news, or you do browsing, and then from there, how has it been? I meet you at many of the OPD programs, I know, but as somebody who manages a magazine, how has it been for you as a person with disability?
Yeah, it hasn't been easy, but you have to keep moving. You don't have to allow some of these challenges, the barriers all over, to actually keep you down. So you need to keep moving. We have a whole lot of people who also assist. Then the ones that can be able to get there I'm also there, and it has not been easy, but I think the only challenge I have is funding. Every other thing, thank God for the ICT. They has also helped us a whole lot. Sometimes there are people who have events in areas where I cannot access. I'll tell them, okay, do the recording or do the video, send it to me through WhatsApp, then I can do the story. So these are some of the other areas that.
Well, we must thank you so much for your time. I know we don't have much time for us to look at other issues, but we're glad to have you. And if next we call on you, you will oblige us again.
That will be the size of our, program today, Development Focus with Jide on ITV. Please come do business with us. This program is open for sponsorship and advert placement. Come do business with us so that we can also help your business to grow and develop. That will be the size. Thank you very much, Dominic, for joining me in doing this. If you have enjoyed today's edition, please be our guest next Wednesday when the fresh edition will come your way. Have a great day. Stay safe and stay blessed.